Welcome to Pet Business Disruptors. I'm Clayton. I'm here today with Lara McCulloch, who is the owner of Karnlea, a company that has a range of supplements, which, in my opinion, is where the market has been going in the supplement market for a while. And yeah, really happy to have you here today, Lara.
Thank you so much. And I'm really flattered that you asked me to be on. I'm delighted. I love your podcast. We've spoken before. I've just got so much out of some of the episodes as well. So yeah, really flattered to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for that. It's kind of weird because in my head it's like nobody listens. So it's kind of, I'm almost just like, I feel like I'm shouting into the void a little bit, but but it's always good when you hear somebody's actually listened to.
I get you.
But yeah, look, reason I love what you do is I think I was building out a supplement range for a company back in 20-ish, and I was doing that on the basis that I'd read a lot of reports which were coming out talking about the growth in the supplement market and the reasons behind it. So increased knowledge in the market, and that was sort of born out of the realization that a lot of dog foods, although they were claiming to have supplementation in them, they were having them in quantities which were inconsequential, and it kind of, the market was moving enormously. And when I think back to where supplements were, so obviously in the 80s, when I was a kid in a pet shop, we used to have, let's say, frozen tripe, broken biscuit, and then people would put things like seaweed powder, SA37s, their multivitamins on, and then the whole thing kind of died, and then it was just bite a pet, and that was it kind of thing for years. But we've like really seen a resurgence in the whole market, and just seeing it all expand out, and I think a lot of that I can sort of put down to the growth in raw food, but I think just generally the knowledge in the sector is so much better. So sort of tell me about you, where you've come from, and like how you, because I know you've been in the industry a long time, and sort of like how's your thinking sort of worked over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I have. So I've actually been in the industry about 20 years, started as a little hobby business, and ran that for a couple of years, just like a lot of people do, a little side hustle. And then in 2006, we actually incorporated my last business, and then back in 2021 that business was acquired, and yeah, I mean, you see a lot of sort of origin stories now, and it's, I couldn't find anything on the pet market that I thought was honest or suited my dog or whatever. And back then that was actually the case. So I had this back in the early 2000s. I had my first dog of my very own, as an adult, living on my own effectively. And I'm one of these people, I've always had rescues. I love animals. I was that child that, your mother came home and you said, I've got a pigeon in a box. It's got a sore leg. Can you take me to the vet to get this fixed? That was me. So I took on this dog, and he was old. He was scabby. He was, everything was wrong with him. He'd broken teeth, and I couldn't get him to eat kibble, and I couldn't get him to, he'd been living off whatever he could. And same stories as I'm sure a lot of people find with rescues, sometimes particularly if they've been on the street or whatever. So I had this old dog, and I was desperately searching for something to help me with his skin, because he was so itchy. If we were out for a walk and it would rain, he would just itch like mad, and parts of his skin he was a white dog, and parts of his skin had turned black through just having loads of infection over the years and things like that. So really, that was what got me started on the road of how can I kind of help here? How can I make things better for him? And got me interested in diet and nutrition, and adding things into his diet that might actually help him, rather than just throwing meds at him. So that was where we started, really. And then the business came out of that when I realized so many other people were in the same boat. So the previous business that we had, we had supplements, we had, we had a wild fish oil product, we had a salmon oil product, and I know those are sort of frowned upon a bit nowadays, but 15, 16 years ago, they were pretty cutting edge. And you weren't finding things like that necessarily in kibble. And yeah, so we went from there and slowly kind of grew the business. And really, I guess, we'd grown quite considerably, but actually mostly we were in shops and things like that, but actually our e-commerce side really started to grow from about 2018. And then obviously COVID came along, and I run the business with my husband, who's not forward facing in it. He likes to be behind the scenes. He's a graphic designer by nature by career. So when COVID started to first be talked about, Ken, my husband, he's really intuitive about things, and he said, you know what, I don't like this coming out of China, because is that not where the pumps for our bottles come from and various things like that? And I said, yeah, they do. And he said, you know what? I don't like this. Shall we not take a salary for a couple of months and just really stock up on everything? And we did. We took a real punt there. We ordered a lot of extra stock because we knew we would sell it anyway, but just as a bit of a kind of a trying to negate any risk that might come. So we did this. And when COVID hit, as you well know, as everybody knows, e-commerce sales went mad, went through the roof, and a lot of people ran out of stock very quickly. A lot of people were sort of saying, I know for a fact a lot of people were saying to suppliers, I'll pay you 20% extra if you bump me up the queue to get me stock. But the problem was we were short of so many things. But we had been really lucky because we had sort of anticipated that there might be kind of delays in the supply chain. So we were very lucky, and we grew quite a bit in the first part of COVID because we had stock where other people didn't. So we kind of read the room quite well. So we had this, we'd had this lovely kind of trajectory going up before that, and then this hit and everything just went crackers, as you know. And then in 2021, started getting a few messages through saying, we're interested in buying your business. And we thought it was just silly scam stuff until we got a phone call one day and did a little bit of research and actually realised that it wasn't. So we ended up selling our business at that point. We got an offer that was too good to refuse. And we'd three of them actually sort of after us at one point. So so we got a really good offer, but I had wanted to stay in the pet trade. So in Northern Ireland, I'm not sure how it is actually in England, Scotland and Wales, but in Northern Ireland, a lot of people, if you buy a business, they want in the contract for you not to be in that industry anymore. So, like non-compete, stay out of the pet trade. So Northern Ireland, you can't do that. If that's your business and that's the industry that you're in and the industry that and that you're used to working in, they see that as, well, you can't take away somebody's right to work in the industry that they know. So we were very lucky. We had a very, very good acquisitions lawyer who's a friend of mine, and she negotiated in that we could have another pet business and that, we could do anything that wasn't going to be directly competing with what we previously did, which we didn't want to do anyway. And at the time, I had been back in June. This all happened sort of around about the September, to the beginning of September. And back that June, I had decided that I would like a bone broth product. So I'd done a lot of work into researching this and seeing what we could do, where we could go. So I kept that back to start the new business. And that is where Karnlea came from. So we had seen this gap in the market. Obviously, Brexit had also happened. So as it's quite obvious, I'm from Northern Ireland. You can hear by the accent. So, bone broth was something that I had always made for my own dogs. So if we had a roast or whatever, I would make bone broth out of it because they love it and it's good for them and, all of that sort of thing. When Brexit happened, we couldn't get a lot of the products that Northern Ireland could freely get. We just overnight, nobody would send to us. We couldn't get these products. So I'm sort of sitting there going, I don't want to make this. I hate making it. It smells awful. It's dreadful. It stinks out your kitchen. I would really like a nice convenient form that I can get. No, not in Northern Ireland. No, you can't. So that's really where we started looking into how we would do this and how we would get this product, and what I was looking at was there was only really frozen broth on the market at the time. And I realised and I knew that with the rise of raw feeding, and I'm a raw feeder myself, I'm not somebody that makes these beautiful, pretty bowls. I'm somebody that whacks it all in, and I don't really want to touch it. I just want to take it out of the tub, put it in, throw a few things on top. All about convenience. We all have busy lives. So I wanted something that was convenient, but I also wanted something that was shelf stable, because I realised that frozen broth, great, but it takes up a lot of space in your freezer, the shape of the pouches, all of that sort of thing. So that's why I went hunting for one. And obviously we looked at powdered broths and we looked at a number of options. And really what we were, you're going around the supermarket and you're thinking, how do other products do this? How do other products, get natural products that are shelf stable? And we realized that actually it would probably need to be aseptic packaging, like long life milk, all of this sort of thing. And we went hunting as to how we do this, what the best way to do this is, what the cleanest way to do this is. And that's really where we found our manufacturing partners, who are in Norway. And the reason why we picked Norway was that if we'd had this product made in the UK, we'd have had to have somebody make it and then ship it somewhere to be reheated, and packaged. And there's going to be sort of, the product's going to degrade, in the in-between period. So we wanted somewhere that could make our product and immediately pack it. So straight from the cooking pot into the packaging, and, fresh as can be. You're not losing any of the nutrients. You're not losing, any of the collagen, the good properties that we have there. And it was really important for us for it to be a completely natural product, 3 ingredients: bones, water, apple cider vinegar. That's all we wanted in it. So we found these people who, that's all they do. And they make broths for the human market. So we knew that the factory was up to scratch, that it was as high standard as we could get. So we approached them and sort of said, would you make this product for us? Here's what we need. Here's where we need our collagen levels to be. Here's what, the standard that we need. We don't want any vegetables in it. We don't want any seasonings in it. So that was really how that started. And we landed the first batch of product, which was our beef broth, which we did first. And we landed that back in September 2021. And with everything going on with the sale of our other business, we didn't start selling until sort of December, January. So that's really sort of how the broth side of things started. Being based in Northern Ireland, as I said, we were having problems getting stuff in, but from Northern Ireland, you could certainly get stuff out. So we had the opposite problem maybe to what some other places were having. So, we had a 3PL that we were using in England at the time. So we basically shipped it in there, which looked after the sort of GB side of things. And we got some shipped over to Northern Ireland, which looked after the other side of things. So we were working out of 2 3PLs to start with. And it kind of grew from there. And we sort of thought, this is going to be a wee sideline business. It won't be terribly busy. And it just took off like a galloping horse. There was a couple of people saw the product and mentioned it way back at the beginning. And people sort of got to know about it and liked it. And it kind of went from there for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think you hit the market at the right time, because you were sort of there sort of first, but at the same time you didn't have that long wait, because a lot of the time when you're first to market with something, you have to wait for the category to build. And there's that saying, you should always be second to market, because you hit the market first and then you burn a load of money, and then somebody comes in and goes wallop and you're done. But you were in there early, and at the same time the category exploded. And obviously now we've seen, like, there's a lot of me tooing in that sector, is what I've seen. And again, but look, not all things are equal. And like, look, I sold, you think about wild bird peanuts. I know we've talked offline before about like wild bird feeding, but I sold peanuts, and peanuts are the least unequal thing going. It's like, you think wild bird peanuts, that's just peanuts in a bag. It's not. There's different grades. They've got different values. They've got different uses. You get the really big ones, the birds can choke on them. You get them too small, they fall through the feeders. You get a certain origins, they go mouldy in no time, or the skins. There's lots and lots of different things to just something very simple like that. And I think with your depth of knowledge, I feel like you were like one of the best placed in the supplement market to actually really take on this sort of new ride of supplements that are coming into the market. Because I've seen, like I say, there's other companies out there which have started up sort of after you in the last 1 to 2 years. But how do you know the difference between, let's say, a good bone broth or a good pumpkin powder or a good goat's milk from what's not there?
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's a brilliant question, and that is really, where we are in the market. And like you, I've seen things come and go, and the growth of fresh feeding and things like this, and the growth of people knowing more about what they're putting in their pets. So it is really important for people to be able to approach a company and to ask those questions. And any good company will be able to say to you, this is where this comes from, this is why we do this is how we do it, here's where our labelling is 100% within the law and what it should be, which is, really important. Things like, for us, our broths are tested by outside labs at least once a year. As I said, our factory is a human grade factory, and it has the highest levels of certifications in Europe. And as far as they're concerned, they're making human broth for us, but we're putting a dog label on it, dog and cat label on it. But it's really important, I think, to know what you're buying. So do you know what? There's always going to be cheaper products on the market, and to an extent there's definitely a place for that as well, because you may have somebody that doesn't want to, spend $10.99 on a carton of broth, and they go, oh, there's one for, this one is a bit cheaper and I can try that one. But they'll maybe try, and then they'll try yours the next time that they know that product's it's working, and they want a more concentrated or a better one. So ours would be pretty concentrated. Our collagen levels are very, very good. Everything, as I say, is analysed within an inch of its life. We can tell you anything about our product. With regard to, a lot of these products that you're talking about, like, we've brought on our supplement range now. We came out of a non-compete at the beginning of the year, so we've quite quickly expanded our range up because of that. And I had these things sourced 1.5 years, 2 years, earlier, but we just couldn't launch them because we were only allowed to do bone broth for those first 2 years. So yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously, we all know there's things that come out of China, and don't get me wrong, there's some good stuff comes out of China as well. There's some stuff that only comes out of China. You can't get it anywhere else in the world, but there's a lot of crap too. And there's a lot of, how cheaply can I get this? Or, we don't really buy into that. We are going to use the most high level providers that we can. We want to know that they have gone through all of the, the rigorous testing that it needs to do to be brought to market. We want to know that our labels are right. They're, the VMD won't come at us for anything. That everything's within the letter of the law, and that people are actually getting what they think they're getting. And I think that's hugely, hugely important. So yeah, you know, when you're looking at bone broth, always look at your collagen levels. You know, you might think you might be getting a better value product, but you would need to give 3 times as much to get the same out of it. So is it actually better value? There's a little bit of thinking involved, I guess, with these things too. But yeah, you know, it's a really interesting thing at the moment. And yeah,
I think with supplements as well, they're particularly unique in the fact that, like, when you buy them, they need to work. You need to buy things that are actually, like, specifically good. And I think that's the thing, is that you can maybe have just good enoughs with certain things, like maybe your dog food, maybe your puppy pads, or you know, a toy or a treat. That could be a just good enough sort of thing. But if you're people who invest in supplements, you invest in a supplement because you want it to do a specific function, and if you don't see a benefit from that specific function, then you actually end up in a situation where you blame the supplement type as a whole, rather than actually saying, well, this brand is like you say, if you're buying a bone broth and it's 3 times less potent, then, you know, you're put the same on as, let's say, one which would work, then you're going to have reduced results, and therefore you're going to think you're wasting your money. And I think it's an important thing, I think, for consumers to understand, but also retailers when they're stocking products to understand. Is look, we used to have this joke around fat balls. So we used to sell fat balls, and I sold 2 types of fat balls in the end, because it drove me mad, to the point where I used to sell a really high quality fat ball, which I used to buy from Germany, from a company called Ertmann's. And you put them up, the birds would eat them straight away, they loved them. And then I sold these other ones, which were cheap, and you'd hang them up, and the birds wouldn't eat them, and it was absolutely, there was nothing left. But the problem is the consumer would buy the cheap ones once, and then would blame fat balls just generally for, like, the birds not eating them. And so, but I used to say to people, like, look, you can either buy the ones that people are going to come back for, or buy the ones you'll sell them once and they'll never buy them again. And go, yeah, but they're cheap. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But I had to hold both in the end, because if I didn't, I almost couldn't show the point of difference. But, you know, I don't think you should do that with something like supplements. I think you just do the ones that actually work, and if that costs a little bit more, but again, that's part of the education. And when you're a retailer, a lot of retailers don't even understand the actual what a lot of the supplements do, let alone understand the variances in quality.
No, you're 100%. You're on the money there. I mean, that is the thing, and it is all about education. And, you know, as a company, I always say to new customers that come along, if you want to have a Zoom call and a bit of training with me on the product, that's no problem. And actually quite a lot of people do want it. And, you know, you're able to also give them tips and say, well, you know, here's what works for other people when they're selling it. You know, here's what really has worked for these people or those people or whatever. And that's kind of helpful to them as well. But 9 times out of 10, as you say, I mean, with bone broth, one of the big things that people don't realise about it is that it's an amazing sickness food. So if your dog is sick or has had diarrhea, or, you know, something like that, has had an operation and doesn't want to eat, or isn't capable maybe just for a while of eating solid food, throw bone broth in there. You know, that's what you do. And you know, that's great for their gut. It's like us having soup, I guess, when we're not feeling well. So, you know, for me, one of the things I'll always say to retailers when I'm on a training with them is, do you have any vets close by? And if they say yes, we've got a veterinary practice just down the road, likelihood is a lot of those people are coming out of the vets and going straight into the pet shop to try and get something to, you know, encourage their dog to eat or whatever. And you're sort of saying to those retailers, look, you know, always say to them, bone broth is what you need. Like, that is what you need for this situation. And we've got people that have really good sales because they literally have a vet down the street and they've started doing that. So it's little sort of things, and it is educating people, and it's educating the retailers as well on all of the points of your products and why your products are going to be really good. I mean, we've just launched a sort of a supplement range throughout this year, we launched 2, then we launched another one sort of a month or 2 later, and then we've just launched our latest one, which is a goat milk product. We already had a goat milk powder topper supplement, and goat milk's, it's a great topper. You know, you want it made from high quality product, you want it made from product where the goats have been treated properly and all of that sort of thing. But, you know, one of the things, the reason why we did this new product, and the new product has probiotics and postbiotics in it, and the reason we did that product was so many people were coming and saying about, oh, your goat milk's probiotic. And I was going, it's not probiotic. It's not probiotic. Where's this coming from? And there's so much confusion about that. So we sort of thought, well, do you know what? Let's actually do one that does have the probiotics in it. But in order for a goat milk powder product to be probiotic, you need to add those probiotics back in, because it doesn't have any in there. We're not talking about raw goat milk, you know. You're talking about goat milk that has gone through a process. So it's been pasteurized, which it needs to be to legally be able to be sold commercially, because, you know, I'm not sure whether people realize this, but raw milk, raw cow's milk or goat's milk, you have to get it directly from the farmer, and he can sell it online, but it has to be sold directly by the farmer. There can't really be a middleman. It has to be farmer to end customer. And you have to know sort of what you're buying there. So, you know, powdered goat's milk, even the process it goes through to powder it, you know, is going to kill any bacteria that are in there, both good and bad. And we need things, you know, we need things to be that way so that they can be sold commercially. So that was why we did this new product. And again, that's to sort of educate people a bit. Goat milk powder on its own, great. It's brilliant. We have one. It's fantastic for getting dogs to eat. It's fantastic for hydration. You know, it's got lots of really good healthy fats and protein, and, you know, it's much more digestible than cow's milk, but it is not probiotic. So, you know, the most logical thing for us to do would be create a probiotic one, which we've done, and it's gone down a storm so far. We've only had it a couple of weeks, but it's flying out. So it was clearly the right thing to do. You know, so there's a lot of that education of people. And again, what we're saying to retailers is, look, you know, any probiotic shouldn't be given long term. You give one, then you change to another. So, you know, you'd maybe have, you know, our Goat Milk Plus, then you might go for, you know, one of the 4-leaf rover probiotics, then you might go another probiotic, then you might go back to the Goat Milk Plus, but you can go between our normal goat milk and our Goat Milk Plus. So we're creating a solution for everybody, really. And again, you know, with that whole aspect on education, what we're about as a company is keeping things as simple as possible for people as well, and as easy for your end customer to understand. You know, I think you get a lot of people, I'm sure lots of other companies are the same, where you get customers going, can I get, you know, I'm giving this product, can I give your product alongside that product? Well, with all our products, yeah, you can, you know, 100%. Whereas maybe with some other supplements, there's something in there that counteracts with another supplement, or you're thinking, am I overdosing? This has such and such in it, and that has such and same thing in it. Am I overdosing my animal by doing this? There's that level of confusion. So we are trying to take that out and make things as simple as possible for both retailers to explain to their customers, and for the end customers to kind of get their head around.
What I really love about like supplements in let's say the pet retail context is they are the ultimate easy upsell for me. And like when you actually get to know your customers, you see, getting people to change their dog food is actually really hard, and a lot of the times totally unnecessary. Whereas selling supplements, just by talking to your customer and understanding your product, so you know somebody's dog's got a bad belly, and so you go, well, okay, pumpkin potter's like natural prebiotics, and it's got fibre, it'll help with the stuff, you know, or like I say, goat milk powder, just to help them like make it a bit more tasty, and then give them extra hydration and whatever it is. But I always find that like it's definitely something a hell of a lot of retailers almost, whether it's ignore or aren't aware about, is just how much of an easy upsell these things are actually in the pet store environment, and that you can make your own life so much easier just by, when you talk to your customer and understand what their problems are, actually sell them a simple solution. Because I do find that, like, historically, when I've gone to pet shops and listened to people talking about, oh, my dog, let's say, it's got like a dodgy stomach, rather than, let's say, going with something easy like a supplement, they'll try and transfer them onto a different food, or, do you know what I mean? And I think they are such an easy upsell for shops, and I do think that there's something that when people do it right, they can sell loads, but when they don't do it at all, they'll just sit on the shelf. So I think, like, actually getting behind the shops and actually training them to understand when a supplement is necessary, and also because once you do it, they're an easy sell. I think I said to you before, I was in a chain store and I was just fussing someone's dog, and the guy started talking to me about his dog's gut, and I was like, oh, pumpkin powder, that's what you want to do, you want to build the gut bacteria and that sort of stuff, and like, he just walked off and bought it. But again, it was like, you know, if I worked full time in a pet store, you know, you should be able to, that should be a daily occurrence where you're able to sell at least one part, and then you've got the repeat orders, because people also, once they get used to doing it, it becomes like a normal thing and an easy sell through. But yeah, if you're selling something that's worked good, it's such an easy thing for retailers to do.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I mean, again, we've built our business in such a way that, you know, I'm a raw feeder myself. My dogs have always been raw fed. They're super healthy for it. But I know and fully I'm accepting that not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody agrees with it. People can be a little bit worried about it. You know, everybody has their own way of doing things, whether that's for just they're unsure, or they feel it's going to be too expensive, or they feel that it's too confusing, or they just generally, it's not convenient for them, you know, and that's, it's not my business to tell people, you know, you're doing this wrong or blah, blah, blah. That's just my opinion. So what we wanted to do was have a range that works for everybody. So it works for the kibble feeders right to the high-end raw feeders. And, you know, the test for me was when we launched our broths, are the really militant raw feeders going to be okay and on board with this? And in general, yeah, they are. A lot of them make their own broth and still have, you know, like a shelf-stable one, you know, or one stuck at the back of the cupboard just in case they don't have any of their own, you know, right down to people who, you know, are feeding kibble and are using it solely to get their dog to eat, you know, because it's fussy on its kibble or whatever. So we want something that's going to be really easy for everybody, no matter what way you feed your dog. This will work with the diet, you know, bung a bit of this on top. And I think what you were saying there, you know, Clayton, about it's now second nature for people to bung things on top of food. And again, I think that's come down from, you know, the rise of raw feeding a bit, because, you know, there's always things to be added to an 80-10-10 or to, you know, a mix, whether that be eggs or sardines, or whether it be pumpkin powder or goat milk powder or bone broth, you know, it's just second nature now to so many people, and that all filters down eventually. And regardless if you feed kibble or not, people still love to add a little bit of something different, a little bit of something extra benefit to their kibble or to their cold pressed food, or, you know, any of these things as well. So it's 100%, it's an easy upsell. If the shops know how to do it, it's a really easy upsell for them. And I think there's, I mean, supplements, it's not going anywhere. It's only gaining momentum, and you know, it's the trains on the tracks with you know, these sorts of feeding and supplements and things, and it's only getting faster. So it's all good for us in the pet industry.
Also, look, as a cost of living thing, it makes more sense to you know, give supplements than to upgrade your food, for example. And like, I often would have this conversation with my brother, because my brother had a shop in Ireland, and we would talk continuously about different dog foods and what's worth the money, what's not worth the money. And he was always, you know, well, if you're using enough good supplements, it becomes less and less important, like the, you know, where your dog food sits, as long as it's sitting at a decent level and it's not like a bag of corn with like 5% meat or something. That actually, like, in terms of people who struggle the most economically, look, a tub of pumpkin powder will last you, what, 3 months? Like, if you're using it at the right volume, I mean, it lasts a long time anyway. And so, in terms of like economics, it makes a lot more sense for a lot of people to be sold, you know, the right supplements alongside their dog food. And for the shop, that can only be a win as well. So, you know, anybody who's, the only thing I could say about it is maybe it's not easy. It's not as easy as picking up a dog food and saying with joint health. But I think people are less interested in the easy when they're coming into pet shops nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are so much more informed these days as well. You know, there's so much information online. There's, you know, there's people out there running lives once, like they're all pet medics and people like that, you know, great for information and for people to jump onto. We've got the Raw Feeding Vet Society. We've got lots of amazing independent shop owners, like some real powerhouses out there who are just so up on nutrition, and their staff are all up on nutrition. So yeah, it should be something that people are adding to their food, just to, as you say, you know, even with the cost of living crisis, you know, you can do it cheaply enough. And our range, we just wanted to have this kind of bespoke feel where one day, you know, you can give a spoonful of pumpkin powder and the next day you can give, you know, your goat milk powder, you're giving your bone broth, and, you know, everything works together. And, you know, it's like anything else. It's all about balance over time, really. And, you know, just giving people those options. We all like to feel that our dogs are really enjoying their food, and, oh, you know, I gave them this today and they really like that. And, you know, we humanize them. So again, it all feeds into your dog being healthier, getting better food, you know, people actively now wanting to do this rather than just, you know, feed a bowl of dry biscuits with nothing on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let me just spin this conversation slightly and go back to the business side. How do you find it distributing as a supplement company? Because, like, in my experience, like, I'm obviously from a wholesale background where we amalgamate a huge amount of lines and you do weekly deliveries. But I'm also very aware of, let's say, if you are buying, let's say, a more limited range, how hard it can be for a lot of stores to make up minimum orders, and also to get the right sell-through to go with it. So, like, how does your whole distribution model work? And
so when we started, we were doing everything pretty much ourselves. We had 3PLs that we were using for actually sending stuff out. I am somebody, my business model works in such a way that I know where my strengths are and I know where my weaknesses are, and if it's a weakness, then I will get somebody in to help me, you know, who's better at it than I am. So, you know, I hate social media. I'm useless at it. So I have a social media manager who, you know, I contract in. PR did the same. But yes, with distribution and selling and whatnot, we started off pretty much doing a lot of stuff ourselves, you know, approaching some shops and whatnot. And actually, Pedigree Wholesale approached us. So we were approached in the first 6 months of trading by Pedigree, and they basically said, we'd like to sell this, you know, what can you do with us here? So as I said, you know, there's certain areas I'm very lucky. I'll go to, you know, if I don't know how to do something, I'll go, who do I know that knows how to do this? They don't need to be in the pet industry. Who do I know? So my cousin's a buyer. So, right, she gave me advice there. And we managed to strike a deal with Pedigree. So we were very, very lucky in that they took us on quite early. That was at the point where we had just brought on our second flavour of broth, which we did in the June of 2022. So that was lamb. And we've worked with them ever since. And we work with a fantastic wholesaler here in Northern Ireland, up in Ballymoney, Gary Gilmore from Well-Fed Pets, who is just brilliant. He's a more specialist wholesaler. which I think we need for Ireland, actually. You know, as you know, we've got big wholesalers here. We've got a couple, Glencrag, Chanel, and I sort of felt, do you know what, Glencrag is not, I don't think, the wholesaler for me. So I approached Gary, and he does all the, you know, natural stuff, lovely natural treats, naked, dog in Ireland, all of that sort of thing. And he now is our wholesaler for the island of Ireland. So, and he also does all of our distribution as well. So that's really handy. So he actually that's the other side of his business. He kind of distributes for people as well here. So yeah, that was how we sort of started really getting into more retail shops and getting our product out there a bit more than what I could do myself. And again, you know, Pedigree's a big outfit. You know, they're fantastic. They're lovely to work with. But again, you're one of, you know, thousands of other products. So, you know, it's kind of knowing what to do with them, to push your product, when to advertise with them, when to do promotions with them. But yeah, that's how we do it. And then we're starting to look at export a bit more. We do a little bit of export at the moment. And again, that will be handled probably from Ireland because it's a bit easier. So yeah, that's really how we were. We were very lucky, as I say, that Pedigree saw us and went, we'd like that. So because usually I know it's particularly as a new brand, it can be very, very difficult to get into a good wholesaler, as you well know.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, especially without a track record of sales in advance, because I'll be honest, when people used to come to me with no sales pipelines, I would need to really believe in that product to actually put it on the shelf, because look, it was a wholesaler, a company like Pedigree, you know, a few thousand SKUs. It's easy just to get lost in the mire very easily, like, and for nobody to ever order that. And you know, I speak to people who've sold into wholesalers, and then their stuff just gets dusty and doesn't sell because they never do anything else with that. So it is like about tackling the retailer. But I think as a supplement company, you do need to be in some kind of wholesale, because I think trying to serve stores direct, I mean, it's possible, but it becomes uneconomic quite quickly is the problem, because unless you've got, I think some of these raw food shops, for example, you could go to directly, but I think for an average bricks and mortar secondary position high street store, I think it's very difficult for them to order a minimum order and to keep their stocks at a level where it makes sense, because you know they have a good week on pumpkin powder, but then they sell nothing else, and then it's like, well, I can't order any more of that for another month, you know, and that's no good, you know. So
yeah, and that's absolutely it.
Yeah, I mean, and for Pedigree to take that on in that way is also very good. Is like, but again, I think that's part of you being in the right position at the right time, rather than if I was to make my own bog broth today, then it becomes a Me Too product where I'm competing on price and you know, maybe I've got some fancier packaging or something, but then it's a race to the bottom. Whereas I think you're in that position where you've got the market and you've got the distribution, which is key.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as well, you know, absolutely what you say about, you know, the likes of Pedigree is absolutely right. But if people know that your product is there, and they know that your product is unique in a certain way, which ours is, you know, we're freeing up freezer space, you know, but we've still got a liquid product. That's you know, pretty good selling point. We've got a really high quality product. You know, so I think you're 100%, you're on the money there again, that, you know, it's one of these things where, as you said quite rightly, which we talked about just before on your distributor podcast, you know, the cost of putting a rep in is phenomenal, and the cost of each visit that rep does is phenomenal. And if you only have 8 SKUs in a range, which is what we do at the moment, and you know, we're due to have another 3 to 4 next year, but you know, you can't do everything at once, and you know, cost wise you can't do everything at once either. But you know, to put a rep on the road is just ludicrous. It would bankrupt you. But yeah, absolutely, it's that sort of balance, and it's that balance of what can we provide this retailer direct? How can we make this manage for them? So we do have, if you buy directly from us, which a lot of people still do as well, we do have relatively low minimum order quantities. We've very low carriage paid order quantities. And we also do a starter pack, which is actually was a new customer that had approached me, and she'd said, do you know what, I'm just a small business and I want to try all of this, but I can't, it's going to be a, £600-700 order for me to try all of your products. Would you break a few cases? And I just thought, do you know what, I think we need to do a starter pack here. So we actually do a starter pack where smaller customers can do that ongoing if they want, but they get 3 of everything instead of 6 or 8 of everything, and it allows them to, for a reasonable price and carriage paid, it allows them to try our entire range of products and see what's going to work for them, because they may go, actually pumpkin powder doesn't sell for me, but goat powder I can't keep in, or pumpkin powder doesn't sell to me, but all your bone broths are flying out, so it's one of these ones that we sort of thought, how you're constantly trying to think, how do you accommodate people? How do you make it easy for people? I'm all about convenience. My products are all about convenience. As I said earlier, when I'm feeding my dogs, I just want to spoon something out really quickly into a bowl, dump a few things on top. I have a busy life, lots of stuff going on. We're all a bit like that. Everybody wants a bit of convenience, and I think really you need to carry that through to your retailers if you want to deal with them directly, and do deals for them and give them 10% off their first order, so that they can try things, and give them, that selection of products so that they know a little bit better what's going to work for them. It's not as risky for them, so for me, that's really how we work directly with people. And then, as I say, we've got well-fed pets, and we've got Pedigree as well. So we're pretty well covered. We're pretty good, and we're going to be at Pats as well. So we'll be running lots of good offers for the retailers there as well. And I think it's important to be seen at these things too, so that people do see that you're there and are reminded that you're in the market and you're there as well.
Yeah, and look, what I really liked about you guys is that, I'm not going to name names, but when you have such a knowledge-heavy product, being able to explain to people why a customer would want this and what it does do and what it doesn't do, and actually having clarity around that is so important. So knowing you, having talked to you, we talked about products and that sort of stuff, I know straight away that if I had a customer in and I said, they've got X product problem, does this product work? You can tell me yes, no, don't do that, do this. Whereas I also know I've spoke to another brand, I'm not going to say who, and they didn't have a clue. It just literally seemed to me like they were just copy pasting somebody else's business idea, but making it a little bit more zhuzh, a bit more flashy, and it was like, yeah, that's not going to work long term, because as an industry, we all need to know so much in order to actually look. We're in the business of solving problems, and you need to solve problems through knowledge.
I mean, absolutely. And I think, it's crucial to be honest with people. It's crucial to be honest with people as to what your product does do, but also, as you say, what it does not do. Because, this is people's hard-earned money, and there's a cost of living crisis on here. And if you buy a product thinking, oh, I'm buying this and I'm giving my dogs probiotics, and you're not, that's not acceptable. That's not good enough. Just don't. The product is good. You don't, so for me, it's really important to sort of go, yeah, this is what it does. This is what it doesn't do. And I'll be really honest with you, and people will tell you left, right and centre. I've had people come to me and say, is this going to help this? And I'm just like, no, it's not. Here's what you need. Go to this company and get that. Because there's so many good businesses out there. There's so many good, companies selling good products. That I think you get more respect from people just actually going, this is not for you right at the moment. Maybe down the line, this is for you, but here's what I think you actually might need. And I think people then start to trust you and trust your brand and trust that you're not going to try and, you know, sell them something they don't need or that's not doing what it says on the tin effectively.
And look, there's nothing worse for sales channels long term than overblowing claims or selling people the wrong thing or pretending things have, But also, it doesn't even make sense, like, in the short term. Look, I can give you, there's, like I say, like you talked about the mythology around goat's milk being, dried goat's milk being probiotic. It's the same when rabbit's ears with fur being a natural dewormer, or or like RSPB, like peanuts having no aflatoxin. There's all these crazy myths, and they're just like, they just all perpetuate continuously, and we need to kill them, because not only is it, like, I mean, not useful, like, in any way, like, they don't make sense, and it damages the product long term. If people are out there, like, if some lunatic's out there thinking he can worm his dog with a rabbit's ear with fur, or thinks by using dried goat's milk after his dog needs a good probiotic boost, they're going to have, like, real problems down the line. So we need to, like, quash this sort of stuff at the source and actually make people realise that, there's these mythologies that are being perpetuated by people need to stop, and we actually need to give good information. And when you give given information, things work. People like the product, they'll come back for the product, and the whole business grows as a result.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that as well. I just think, it's almost like people sort of get a bit, oh God, I must sell this at all costs. And you don't need to sell it at all costs. Don't sell it if it doesn't do what it says for that person. We're all about, we want to be really transparent. Anything that anybody asks us, I will come back. If I don't know the answer, I generally go, listen, I don't know the answer to that right now. Can you give me a couple of days? I'll go and find out, and I'll go to somebody who does know the answer. But yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think, that there's a lot of sort of, you would have seen a lot of things coming up, maybe people who aren't actually pet people, who just see an opportunity somewhere on Amazon or whatever, and it's say what you will say about this at all costs, just sell it. And I don't think that's right at all. I think you need to be authentic about your products. I think you need to be honest about them as well. And you know what? Here's the thing. Furry rabbit ears are still great. They're brilliant. But don't sell them, as you say, they're not going to deworm your dog for you. It's still, there's lots of good selling points about your product. You don't need to have absolutely everything and the kitchen sink thrown in.
But the thing is with, like, furry rabbits is they're actually really great for gut biome, but they don't deworm. Like, and isn't that a better USP anyway? Like, because I don't know anyone who goes into a shop and says, I want a treat to worm my dog. Like, they go, that's a great treat. Dogs love it. Oh, it's great for the gut biome. That makes sense. Not, oh, it's going to deworm your dog. I mean, what? Like, do you know what I mean? And it's that sort of thing that you need to kind of, like, it's sort of like certain things just sort of catch over the ears, and and it's just everyone, like, rattles off the same thing, even though it doesn't make any sense, to be honest. But yeah, like, and look, part of it is look, when you've been around a long time, you can actually differentiate between products, and that's a key thing, I think, when you're dealing with somebody who's experienced in what they're using, because nothing is straightforward. You might think that you're just buying some old goat's milk powder and chucking it in a can, but like, oh, I saw some goat's milk powder being sold down at the ag merchants, I could use that, but this is how people think, and it's getting people, like, it's only through experience you can sit down with people and say, actually, this is what I do, and this is why it's different, and this is why this works and why that doesn't work. Like people buying tiny grade peanuts, for example, and
I'm sure you find with peanuts as well. I remember, gosh, there was a thing went round about fish oils years ago, and it was like, oh, it'll deplete your dog's body completely of vitamin E and this, that, and the other. And yes, it will if you give tons and tons of it. And that's why any good sort of, more reputable brands would have added the vitamin E in at the time and stuff like that. But, somebody says something somewhere and it goes viral. And there's the masses amount of misinformation out there, and it's so frustrating when it happens. It's really, and I think furry rabbit's ears are maybe, you know, along that line, and there's a number of other things. I'm sure you know them as much as I do over the years, where you're like, what? Like, think about this a minute. Just think about it. How can this be the case? Yeah, and it just seems to be that people go, oh, this is what it does, and it almost becomes like a sort of an urban myth. And I remember with the salmon oil thing and the fish oil thing, it was everybody was wondering, is it cold pressed? There's no such thing as cold press. You know, you can cold press flaxseed and you can cold press olives for olive oil. You can't put a fish between two plates and watch oil run out of it. You know, it's just from, you know, chemistry. That's not how it works. And when you sort of say to people in simple terms and you see them go, oh, right enough, you know, and it's just because they're not, maybe, you know, they've heard it, but they don't want to go down that rabbit hole of research there, you know. But yeah, there've been loads of things over the years that have just been bonkers that have come back, and you're like, that's not how it works. And again, you know, I love production, and, you know, because I don't make my own, my model, as I say, is I've never made my own product. Other people can do that way better than I can. You know, me standing making bone broth somewhere is never going to be as good as the factory that makes my broth, that's all they do. That is their livelihood, you know, that's what they do. I'm never going to be as good as they are at making it. So, you know, that's why we go to somebody and go, right, okay, we need you to work with us. Here's what we want. Here's what our ingredients are, you know. And in fact, you know, they only work with us. We're the only people that they do pet for. So yeah, it's for me, I love all that side of it. I love production. I love how production works, all the things that you have to think of, all that puzzle going together. You know, how even things like, you know, what's a cost-effective production run? How many do you need to do to make it a cost-effective run? Where do you need this to be and that to be? And, you know, it's fascinating. I love all that side of it. It's like a complete, you know, it's a complete puzzle, and there's loads of moving pieces and loads of plates in the air with production, as you well know, but I love it. It's really fascinating. And I think, you know, going back to it, for me, if I was going to formulate a product that had more ingredients in it, I would 100% want to use a qualified, you know, nutritionist to do that, and somebody that has to have production experience. So, you know, it's all well and good formulating something with a FIDIAF calculator, but if that's not going to be cost effective and production effective, or one of those ingredients is a nightmare to get, or it doesn't, or you know, it's all those little moving pieces to know it, that, you know, that somebody who's used to formulating also knows, you know. I love all that side of things. I find it so interesting. I'm a bit of a geek on it, to be honest.
Actually, like, people not realising the seasonality of certain products as well, and like how global markets can change, and also the scale of some things and how much they're produced as well, you know. So I think some people, it's like, I've known people who've had, let's say, FMCG type product companies, and they've come up with an idea for something, and they've put all these wacky ingredients in there, but then when they go and do a proper run, they can't make it because they can't buy enough quantity of some of the ingredients to go in it, because they've not really delved into how much of something is actually out there, you know. It's like me saying, well, I'm going to use like Bolivian limes from the something or other tree, and then realizing they only produce 50 a year or something, you know. It's like, but people, like, there's so much goes into everything, and understanding where the scale is, like, not just from the front end but from the back end as well, is so important.
Oh, completely. And it's a dark art. It really is. It seems really simple, but it's a dark art. And, you know, we always laugh about bone broth because it's such a simple product, but it's not at the same time. It's just a dark art, because so much can go, you know. It's different if you're making it in your slow cooker at home, and you see on some of the groups, and people are like, oh, it didn't set for me, or this, do I have to throw it out? And you're like, no, it's still fine, you know, still feed it to your dog, it'll be grand. But, you know, for us, from a commercial point of view, we have to hit those collagen levels. We have to hit the protein levels. We have to, you know, hit the levels that we're saying we're hitting on the pack. And that's not easy to replicate that every time. And I think, you know, people understand that with a natural product, you're going to get variations. But when they're buying it commercially, you don't want massive variations in it, especially if you're used to a product being one way, you know. Like you don't want your pumpkin powder 1 month to be kind of light yellow and the next month it to be deep, deep orange, you know, that sort of thing. Because people like consistency to a certain extent too. Yeah, so it's a dark, like production's a dark art, and bone broth's definitely a dark art. So yeah, I'm glad we've got a really, really good manufacturer who can do that for us.
Right, so if people want to get a hold of you, want to get a hold of your products, like obviously you said Pedigree in the UK and
yeah, absolutely. So Pedigree, yeah, so Ireland, and actually Gary is starting to at Well Fed Pets. He is actually supplying into the UK, well, the new GB now as well, as Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. So he's a one-stop shop there. Has lots of lovely products. So you can contact Gary at Well Fed Pets, who's fantastic, and you can get our products through Pedigree. You can also get our products direct. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about any of the products, give them any training. We have a trade portal on our website. So you just basically apply for an account there, and that's how that works. And if it's an end customer, again, lots and lots of pet shops have our product. I can advise you on some there, but some we don't know because of Pedigree. We don't know where they sell. And again, you can buy from our website. We're also on several of the other e-commerce platforms. And people can get a 10% discount code with Karnlea 10 if they so wish to do so as well. For the end customers, that's from the website. And we also actually sell Ingenious Probiotics products on our website as well. I sell a few products from brands that I really like and I use myself. So we've got Ellie Thompson's Dermadog just come on, which is a beautiful grooming range. We've got Joe Flanagan's Ingenious Probiotics, which is a entirely natural cleaning range, and it is amazing. And we've got Vince the Vet's joint range as well, because I use that on my own dogs, and it's a fantastic range, really good products. So we'll be bringing on other brands as well. But yeah, that's basically where you'll get us. And you can contact me through the website. Awesome. Yeah. No, so, and what is your MOQ for a normal pet shop? So a normal pet shop, yeah, so an independent, what we do is our carriage paid order amount is set at £150, and that will get you free shipping. We do supply smaller amounts. It would be a 2 case amount actually, so it's a really, really low minimum order amount to order for pet shops. So if you just wanted to order a couple of cases of something, you can certainly do that. We charge a flat fee shipping for that, which is only £4.95, which is lower than most, because we're just trying to make it a bit easier for people. So yeah, we've pretty low amounts, and as I said earlier, we've got this lovely starter bundle that just allows people to try everything in our range and then see what they like and what works for them as well.
I recommend the product. I use it myself, so I'm 100% behind it. So, and look, I've sold it in a pet shop like I wasn't even working in.
I know, I really appreciate it.
But thanks a million for doing this, and really appreciate it, Lara.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, just thanks a million.